Welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm Dr. Arnold Nerenberg. I've been a clinical psychologist, licensed to practice in the state of California for over 46 years. I've been in the profession for about 50 years. And in a little over a month, I'm going to be 80 years old. So I'm bringing to you the experiences of a lifetime of 80 years on this earth and 50 years of being in the profession. And it's my pleasure to do this. It really is a privilege for me to be in your presence and to have the opportunity to talk to you about what really matters in life. And it's my intention to bring to you thoughts and ideas and inspirations that will affect you and your descendants for the rest of your lives. That's my intention. The title of today's presentation is this: Oh, Misfits of the World, Honor is Your Solution. Oh, Misfits of the World, honor is your solution. So we're talking about misfits. We're talking about the feeling of being an outsider, not belonging to any group, not really fitting in. Outcast is too strong a word. Black sheep usually refers to black sheep of the family. So we say outsider, not fitting in to any group, whether it's your religious group, a political group, social groups. You just don't fit in. It's my estimate, based on some of my clinical research, that somewhere about 5% of the population are misfits, feel they're misfits. Now, also, a misfit will feel unknown, and often a misfit will feel they have to hide their identity, because if people knew who they really were or what they were thinking, there'd be a rejection. Now, misfits didn't make the choice to be a misfit. Misfits were born that way. I have an expertise on this because I'm a misfit. And so I got to then start talking to my patients about being a misfit. So this presentation is for misfits, but also for people who aren't misfits, to see what the journey is like, what the life is like of those who don't fit in. And I'm particularly going to focus on not fitting in. There's one category of misfits who are deep people. They're very genuine and very deep. I want to primarily focus on that. You have people who are misfits because they have low self-esteem, or they don't speak the language well, or they're very self-conscious. I'm mostly going to focus on misfits who don't fit in because they're very deep and very genuine. And so they can't really relate to the people they're around, because they find it, they can't really feel the people. They don't feel they can really touch them. And a lot of times in the groups, they feel that they can't sense the emotion of the people. They don't feel an emotional connection. So there's not emotional, very often not a mental, intellectual, or emotional connection. Now, we're going to be focusing on that type. Now, often, but not always, often misfits are lonely, but not always. Often misfits are lonely, but not always lonely. You have some people who are misfits who have a hidden identity, but they sort of blend in. They enjoy the people's company. They to do this. Now, one thing I want to tell you about misfits also. Misfits typically have gone through a period in their lives, our lives, where we tried to fit in. We tried to be a part of this group and that group, tried to be a part of different groups. But somehow, either the people knew that you were different, they knew we were different, or we just knew we were different. Too different to really fit in. Couldn't get into the flow of what was happening in the group. And very often, when misfits try to fit in, they feel they have to be like the others. It's like pretend. If I pretend I'm like you, I can fit in. That's often a solution. The misfits go through that journey, saying, I've got to behave, look like these people, talk like these people. It's about be like these people to fit in. Well, part of the solution in terms of honor is the solution. walking the way of honor, and I'm going to talk more about how honor fits into this, is knowing this, that you have the right to be who you really are, as long as the expression of your true self is in a respectfully real manner. You have the right to be who you really are, and your unique identity, as long as the expression of that identity is in a respectfully real manner. Not just real, but respectfully real. Now, I want to tell you what the solution is. That's part of it, is knowing you have the right to be who you are. The other thing is, the other aspect is having this attitude. Do not expect people to understand you. They're not going to understand you. Don't even expect to be liked. Don't even expect to be trusted, because people that are different, people are going to look at them with some suspicion. Don't expect to be trusted, liked, and definitely don't expect to be understood. The way of honor dictates that we embrace the world. We embrace them. We don't expect them to embrace us. So the connection happens between us and others because we embrace them and their reality. And we don't expect them to embrace us. We don't expect them to accept us. We accept them for who they are, and we respect the others. But we don't even expect to be respected. We don't expect to be understood, respected, liked, or even trusted. The way of honor dictates that we embrace the world. Very often when people are not fitting in, just a common dimension is that there's not only a lack of the emotional connection, but also very often they don't feel. A lot of times you're in a group, there's laughter go on. People talk and then they laugh and talk. Very often a misfit doesn't find it funny. Yeah, the misfit typically doesn't find the jokes, whatever group it is. We're talking about not fitting into that group. Whether it's a religious group or philosophical group or social group, whatever. Typically doesn't find it that funny. And finds it difficult to also force a smile or laughter about it. That's pretty common. Not always, but that's pretty common. Now, I'm going to talk to you about the Disciples of Honor. I'm also going to talk about a division of Disciples of Honor. I'm going to start as an Instagram to begin with, and I'm going to call it the International Association of Misfits. The International Association of Misfits, and where we become united in honor. Honor becomes the uniting force for us. We're finding each other. And it's throughout the world. With these Zooms, we can talk to people all over the world that are misfits. And I'm particularly focusing on misfits who are misfits because they're deeper than others and more genuine. And it's hard for them to be accepted in that way. Or when they are, the consequences are difficult to take. Very difficult. If you're being genuine, the depth, it's hard. I know people who say it's very hard for them to be with other people. Now, when I talk to them more, it turns out they're deep and genuine people. And they could, a lot people who are deep and genuine can fit in with each other. But it's hard to find a group like that. You're lucky if you find a significant other, a wife, a husband, a boyfriend, a girlfriend, that the person's deep. In fact, very often, deep people become married to other deep people. That's a key dimension for any relationship. You can't have a deep person becoming very intimate in a prolonged period of time with someone that's not deep. It's just not going to happen. Deep people need to be with deep people who really think about things, who feel things deeply, who think deeply about things. So when we're talking about, misfits of the world, honor is your solution. And we're particularly, again, I want to reiterate that we're talking about people feeling like a misfit. I'm focusing on this one group, people who are deep and genuine. And it can be very odd for somebody who doesn't like to be deep to be with somebody that's a very deep person. Now, we'd say if somebody's deep and genuine doesn't mean they're always serious. You could be joking around, lighthearted. So the being deep and genuine could also be have the laughter. But when a deep, genuine person laughs, it comes from way down here, as opposed to laughter that comes just on the teeth showing, and kind of a different kind of laugh. So, but again, I want to reiterate the point that honor is really the solution for this. And as disciples of honor, I'm going to talk about what's involved in that. We embrace the world. We don't expect them to embrace us. We don't expect them to understand us, like us, love us, trust us. Just not going to happen. We don't expect that. We embrace them. We have a respect for who they are. We don't even expect them to respect us. Of course, we're not going to tolerate disrespect. We're going to do what we can to neutralize that. Now, what's necessary to understand is very often people who are misfits, like us, go through a period of trying to fit in, trying to be like the others, but also go through another period after that where we get angry. We become angry because we feel some loneliness in the world, typically, for some loneliness, and we're angry at the other people that we're lonely with them. This is a common dynamic. Again, not all misfits feel that, but it's pretty common to get angry at the world because of not fitting in, and then the loneliness that comes from that. Now, by embracing the world, that loneliness is reduced because we're accepting them. We're not putting the barrier up. This is very important, that we understand that we embrace them and we don't expect them to embrace us. Now, the way of honor, and of course we're talking about us as misfits being united in honor. Very important that there's a way, and particularly again we're focusing on misfits who are deep and genuine, and that's where the alienation, being an outsider, comes from for this particular group, as opposed to those who have low self-esteem or they're very self-conscious. They're also misfits, but this particular group is very prevalent and very important. I belong to that group myself, so that's why I'm an expert on it, just seeing myself over the years. So remember, in terms of development, there's a period of trying to fit in, and that can go on for a long time. It definitely goes through the teens. It goes on for a period of time. Then it goes, we can't fit in, trying to be like the people. Then there's a period of anger because we didn't succeed in fitting in. The people always knew that we were different. As much as we tried to fit in, they knew we were different. It was just, they could just feel there's something different about this person. They knew it. Now, so to be able to embrace the world, honor is that unifying factor. Being united in honor, not only with other misfits, but being united in honor through embracing those where we don't fit in, with whom we don't fit in. So the honor, being united in honor for us as misfits, and united in honor where we are able to then be united with those who don't consider themselves misfits. They kind of conform and fit in with each other. But to walk that path, I'm going to describe the path of honor to do that, to become a disciple of honor. We're talking about the 4 commandments of honor. And these 4 thoughts will lead to unity. It will cut down the estrangement that goes on. And the 4 thoughts are these. I wish you well. So if you're not fitting in, you feel alienated, or you're just wishing the people well. You see that they're not taking to you, you're not part of the group, but you're wishing them well. Then I take full responsibility for co-creating my reality and my problems. It's not just their fault. I mean, given who I am and how I speak and what's in me, I mean, through no fault of my own and perhaps no fault of their own, this situation exists between us, but I'm co-creating it. And some of that alienation and being an outsider is because of our own negative feelings and thoughts that we're getting there. And of course, we want to go beyond that, where we're embracing the world. But in the early stages, there is some kind of resentment about it. Then I'm grateful for the power I gain from hardship. So this being a misfit, we look for what is the power I'm gaining for? What advantages have I gotten? For many people, it's led to becoming great poets, writers, filmmakers, some way of expressing that depth, a creative expression of that depth, a productive use of that depth. And then the fourth commandment of honor is one of two. If you believe in God as I do, it would be, God, your wish is my only wish. And if you don't wish to address God, it would be, I seek always to serve my highest values. So 4 commandments of honor that would be there for me would be, God, your wish is my only wish. I wish you well. I take full responsibility for co-creating my reality and my problems, and I'm grateful for the power I gain from hardship. So those are 4 commandments of honor that I would use. Now, you want to be able to commit your life to it. So I have what I call the pledge, where you're pledging that you're going to repeat them 3 times a day for the rest of your life, because that will create a very healthy flow and maximize the internalization of the commitment. As a disciple of honor, I pledge myself for all the days of my life to the 4 commandments of honor. And I'll teach them to those I love. I'll repeat them every morning, afternoon, and evening, and listen to myself recite them. So there you have it. That's a commitment then, a lifetime commitment to do. That's going to help tremendously with embracing the world, embracing those that don't embrace us. And certainly anybody who's not a misfit, that's going to help them relate more to the misfit. So it's a double-edged sword. We'll be able to embrace them more through this path of honor. But the others will be able to say, well, he's a bit odd, but you know what? He's human. He's a human being like me, and they're more likely to be able to embrace us, because the way of honor will take anybody to that position. So then we want to increase the probability that any situation that the commandments of honor will be applied. So I have what I call a bridge from the realm of honor to reality. And the bridge is this. What's the most honorable thing to think, say, and do? So you have the 4 commandments of honor followed by the bridge. God, your wish is my only wish. I wish you well. I take full responsibility for co-creating my reality, my problems. I'm grateful for the power I gain from hardship. What's the most honorable thing to think, say, and do? Now, for those who want to go on for being more another level from disciple of honor, devotee of honor, is to commit themselves to the supremacy of honor code. The supremacy of honor code is honor before pride, honor before anger, honor before sex, honor before money, honor before fear, honor before everything, honor before life itself. The pledge goes this way. As a devotee of honor, I pledge myself all the days of my life to the supremacy of honor code, and I'll bring it to the world for a more just society. So there you have it. The 4 commandments of honor, the bridge, the supremacy of honor code. You could go the full distance with just the 4 commandments of honor and the bridge. But the supremacy of honor code takes even further. I don't even ask most people to make that step. But it's for some have maybe 30 that I've offered it to so far. So this then will help you in the mission of embracing the world that doesn't understand you, or perhaps doesn't even accept you, doesn't understand me or accept me. Keep in mind that my estimate, based on my clinical observations and life observations, about 5% of the population are misfits. But again, this presentation is not only for the misfits, it's also for the people that would want to understand who the misfits are, what the issues are. Keep in mind that many misfits are lonely or go through a period of loneliness. Not all do, but it's very common to become lonely because you don't fit into these groups. Now, when I'm starting the International Association of Misfits, that would be a place for us to be. In particular, I want to attract in the people who are misfits because of their depth and genuineness. Now, certainly we'll be united in honor. The misfits, that unites us, allows us to also embrace those who don't accept us. So this is really the presentation. Oh, misfits of the world, honor is your solution. Talking again, as a misfit, we feel different, we don't fit in, we're outsiders, don't feel we belong, and typically feel we have to, we feel kind of odd, or people might look at us as odd or eccentric, and typically people know there's something different. You're trying to fit in, but they know there's just something different here. The other thing that would help dealing with the people with compassion is understanding how vulnerable the other people are. They really had to do a lot themselves to fit in. they're vulnerable. The people are more fragile and vulnerable than we realize. I share that because I want to minimize how much anger that misfits go through, because there's an anger at it. But when you realize that the people, just like you can't help being a misfit, I can't help being a misfit, they can't help being a conformist who's done all they can to fit in. That they just had to do that. And that typically there's a fragileness, a weakness, a vulnerability that drove to that. Listen, let's face it. If you and I, as the misfits, could have fit in, we would have. If we could have fit in, we would have. We just weren't successful. We just couldn't pull it off. So there we have it. We had to go down this path of this. And it takes us to saying, you know what, heck with it. I'm going to be me. It leads to that. I have the right to be who I am, as long as the expression of my true self is done in a respectfully real manner. It's been my pleasure to present to you these materials for our Misfits. I'm going to open it up for any comments or questions. Michael, what are your thoughts about what's been presented?
You know, I often find people like me engaging, and hey, you know, never underestimate the stimulation of eccentricities. You know, I enjoy being around the company of people like that. You know.
Yeah, you like to be around.
That I wrote.
What's that?
I lost my mind to find my soul, but it took my soul to find my honor.
Well, there you go. Let me ask you something, Michael. You're not a typical guy. Would you say that you're a misfit?
In your definitions, yes.
You're a misfit.
Yes.
Did you go through a period of trying to fit in?
Yes, of course.
See,
Most of my life.
Most of your life you try to fit in. Did you ever feel that people didn't understand you?
Oh, always misunderstood.
So
you know?
that's a good. So
always explaining myself.
So see, you're a typical misfit. You're not understood. Now, of course, what I'm saying is we have to give up on that. People wanting people to understand us, and of course, we can try to help them understand us, but we don't really expect it. Did you go through a period of being lonely because you didn't fit in?
Always lonely.
There you go. See, well, so you're, again, a typical misfit. Did you go through a period of being angry at the world because you didn't fit in?
Still am pissed off.
So there you go. See what I'm talking about? You're a genuine misfit, Michael. That's one of the reasons you and I connect so well and understand each other.
Just real cute, Arnold.
All right. Who else do we have here that's a misfit that's online? Was anybody? Who else is? Alicia, what are your thoughts about what's been said?
Misfit.
You're a misfit. Okay. Tell me. Okay. Did you try to fit in?
Not really.
You didn't try to fit in.
No, I just kind of went on my own and always kind of do my own thing. But yes, I do spend a lot of time by myself.
Did being a misfit add to your loneliness?
Sometimes.
Yeah, but not, okay. Did you go through a period of anger about it, or you didn't?
No, not so much. I think I just take it very much like matter of fact, like this is who I am.
Okay. Do you feel that people can understand you, or you felt mostly misunderstood?
Misunderstood.
Yeah, misunderstood. But you're what I call a well-adjusted misfit. Michael and I weren't as well-adjusted as you are as a misfit, although I consider myself more well-adjusted than I used to be as a misfit. Yeah.
But is a misfit like a rebel a little bit?
Well, a rebel, yeah, the misfit I'm mostly talking about doesn't fit in because of how genuine we are and deep. Now, that could also be a rebel. Some people are just rebellious without those characteristics. But I'm particularly focusing on some people are misfits because they have low self-esteem or don't speak the language, whatever. This is particularly reaching out to people who are misfits because of their depth and genuineness. That's a subcategory of misfits. Mm-hmm. And I know that applies to you. You're a very genuine, deep person, aren't you?
Yeah. That was one part that really hit home when you said there's a lot of times where misfits don't necessarily find someone that could understand them all the way, you
Oh.
because we're deep.
Very,
and
very rare.
Not many people could handle that intensity.
Well, my wife, Maheen, she's the deepest woman I've ever known. That really makes the connection really super strong. Without that, I think to really have a good marriage, I think you really need both partners being deep. And particularly if, I'm a misfit. My wife could fit in anywhere, but doesn't want to. So, yeah, that's funny. Let's see. Roberto, what about yourself? What were your thoughts and reactions to what's been said?
Well, definitely I'm one of those 5%. I'm definitely a misfit for sure. Definitely. I mean, I like what you said, that you got the right to be who you really are. I agree with that. I like that.
So you tried to fit in, and it didn't happen. All right.
Yep.
And did you ever feel, you're such a nice person, deep and genuine. Did you feel ever angry at the world that you didn't fit in?
Of course, angry and frustrated sometimes. Mainly when you're trying to explain the way you see life. Your point of view.
Yeah. Well, my goal in presenting this is to help you not feel frustrated, because they can't even expect people to understand you, unfortunately. Does your being an outsider, has it made you lonely at all?
Oh, definitely, yes.
Made you lonely. So these are pretty typical aspects. Ted Roy, welcome. Good to see you. So Ted Roy, what was your reaction? Do you feel a misfit? Does that apply to you, or it doesn't apply to you?
Doc, who I think sometimes,
What?
I look at it as being, we all are misfits.
Well,
No matter how you look at it.
okay.
As intelligent as you are, nobody sometimes understands you.
Well, we're all a misfit. We're all a misfit, but I would say some more so than others. I think that some people found a way to fit in. How they're able to do that? Some misfits found a way to fit in. I'm going to ask you this: do you fit in? Is there groups that you fit in with or not?
Well, Doc, no matter what we do, we're going to fit in with some people and we will not fit with some.
No, we all fit in with some people. I'm talking like a group. Is there this group or that group, whether it's social, religious, political, whatever? There's a group, a social group. 5, 10 people, whatever. Do you fit in?
I fit in some places.
You fit in with some groups. Okay. So you're not a total misfit. Yeah, you're not a total misfit. But you're a very genuine and deep person. When I ask you this, do you feel, as a partial misfit, do you feel lonely with the people?
Sometimes I do and sometimes I don't, because sometimes they ignore us.
Do you feel an anger that because you don't fit in?
Oh, a lot of it.
You got a lot of anger. See, you have some of the things, but you fit in with some groups. Okay.
Well, some people believe you, some people don't believe you. Some people understand you, some people would understand you.
Well,
Who are the misfits?
generally, when people are deep like yourself and you're a man of wisdom, and you're deep, and you're genuine, it's pretty rare. I mean, it's pretty rare to find a group. I mean, I realize in your family they love you, you might fit in there, but it's pretty rare to have any kind of a group that's all getting together. I mean, you might, with individuals, it's one thing, one-on-one.
Right.
But in a group, it's usually a misfit as an outcast or an outsider. They feel very different. They don't feel like they belong. Yeah. Well, so tell me about your misfitness. Do you feel like you're a misfit?
100%.
Yeah, well, you and I talked about that today. I'm so happy you're here. 100% misfit. So you feel like an outsider. You don't belong into any of the groups. And I know you're a very deep and genuine person. Am I correct in saying that?
Yes.
So do you feel lonely because of that being a misfit in most groups?
Yes, I do feel lonely for that reason. But I've tried to cope with it by thinking, well, maybe I just have some good qualities where I can make deep connections with people to try to cope with that. But it does get to me sometimes
Well, you know, you can make, I'm sure, connection on, you can make a connection on a one-to-one basis. Do you ever feel angry at the world that you don't fit in?
I would say it's more sadness than anger.
Sadness than anger. Okay. Well, I think that's because you're a very kind person. Instead of the anger, it went to sadness. Is that correct in saying you're a very kind person?
Yes, too much, and I think that's why sometimes I, become reclusive and
Yeah.
not try to fit in anymore because of that reason.
Well, it was my intention and my hope to bring to you the way of honor, where we embrace the world. We don't expect them to embrace us. That was my intention of this. I really, and again, I want to emphasize, none of us chose to be misfits. None of us. If we could have fit in, we would have. We were born this way. We were born this way. And it's a gift. In many ways, it's a gift. We have unique contributions to make because of it. But there's a price that we've paid with loneliness, with anger, with feeling being misunderstood. And unappreciated. That goes with it too. Unappreciated. Yeah. I really appreciate your input on that. Well, it's my pleasure to meet with you. My enjoyment, deeply so. And so I want to thank everybody for the opportunity to be here with you in your presence and to present to you something that I consider to be extremely meaningful. Oh, misfits of the world, honor is your solution.